Well, let me get started, and a very warm welcome to the 167th Security Thought Leadership webinar. And the idea of these webinars is to take a topic and understand what the issues are about it and how we might think about these issues. And just to make a point, by the way, as we are about to start this webinar, in Romania, they're about to start the awards ceremony for the Romanian Oscars, a big gala dinner in Bucharest. So good luck to them over in Bucharest. Today, though, a topic we've never done before: protecting luxury goods. Is security winning? And the reason why I was particularly keen to do this topic is that, having worked with a lot of offenders, they tell me the good thing about luxury goods is a lot of value in them, and they're easy to sell and you can make a lot of money. So they're really worthwhile targeting. And so when it was suggested that we do this webinar, I thought, what a great opportunity to find out what the issues are and how we might begin to tackle it. And as always, I've got three experts from different parts of this subject matter, who in a second I will invite to introduce themselves. And once they've done that, I will ask them each to make an opening statement. 3 minutes when they get to say whatever they want to about the subject matter. And if you would like to ask a question, please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, and I'll endeavour to incorporate it. And people have sent me questions in advance as well, which is always a good sign. Without further ado then, let's meet our panel. And first of all, let's go to Geneva and Shaun.
Thank you very much, Martin. I'm Shaun Wilson. I'm the Group Physical Security, Health, Safety and Environmental, quite a long title, Director for Richemont. You're probably not going to know Richemont, but you'll know some of our brands. So we're in the luxury industry, where it's fashion accessories, watches, jewelry, and also online distribution, etc. So you're going to know Richemont, Cartier, Montblanc, Van Cleef & Arpels, Yux, etc. These are all Richemont brands. In my role, I look after the framework, the auditing, the assessment, etc. of what we do, and the organization. Haven't always been in luxury. Before that, I was in the banking world, working for Barclays. And before that, I was in the oil and gas industry. I'm a chartered physical security person, health and safety and environmental.
Thank you very much indeed, Shaun. Excellent. And now over to Christophe. Christophe.
Hello, happy to be here and thank you for inviting me. My name is Christophe Mosso. I'm French. No one is perfect. Sorry for that. I work in the security industry for 30 years now. And today I'm acting at Securitas Europe as a global key account manager and a program manager. I work very closely with Richemont, Shaun. I know also Richard. Happy to see you, Richard, once again. And yeah, then I would say my role is to ensure Richemont that we are delivering a very high level of security, because the luxury industry is extremely demanding. So we need to perform and we need to deliver all over the world the same level of security. So we need to provide a certain consistency also in the security for the Richemont sites.
Well, we'll be coming back to that, I'm sure, Christophe. Thank you very much indeed. And finally, a bit closer to home for me, the last time I saw Richard, we were sitting on a plane almost side by side, and I missed my connection. Richard, introduce yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. So, hello, everyone. Richard Brooks. I am the Regional Security and Safety Manager for North EMEA for Louis Vuitton. My role is predominantly physical security, loss prevention, along with the some asset protection, crisis management, and business continuity work. I've been in luxury for approximately 6 years, just over 6 years. Previously worked for Richemont in the UK. I've been in the security industry for coming on to 12 years. As a side endeavour, I am the Director of Young Professionals for the ACES UK chapter, and I'm responsible for mentoring and putting on events for young professionals throughout the UK. So yeah, thanks, Martin.
Richard, thank you very much indeed. We're another expert panel. Some of you write to me and tell me how good we are at getting panels together. So 3 experts. Now let's hear what they've got to say. 3 minutes when they get to say whatever they want to about this subject area. And don't forget, if you'd like to ask a question, please use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, and I'll come to you after they've all spoken. Without further ado then, Shaun, your opening statement, please.
Okay, then why do I think luxury and security is slightly different to some of the others? So when you look at the activities, be it manufacturing, distribution, repairs, point of sale, transport, etc. All these good things. What are we actually doing with these products? These products and all these experiences, should I say, are usually around high end, high cost. So you're paying a little bit more than what you, or a lot more than what you would do with others. So a product can go from thousands to hundreds of thousands to millions. This changes the risk profile of what we have and the attractiveness of what we have. So from our point of view, we see people who are probably more willing to take a risk to try and steal something from us. To steal 200,000 worth of goods from a supermarket or a warehouse is very different to what you have in one of our boutiques. So we see the risks are different. People are more willing to take the risk because of the payoff. What are some of the things and some of the challenges we have? And I'll link this down to people, process, and technology. With the people part, some of the challenges wanting people to come and join us and recruit with the environment that we have today. We've also got training and development, cultural, making security safe, important for our staff and not to be hooked onto the commission that they may or may not get, and to make this relevant. So people is a huge part of what we have within our security framework and our controls. We then have process, making a framework relevant to these people, making testing best practice. How do we make this sexy? How do we make this work so people will apply it and they see it as important compared to delivery, compared to sales? We then have technology. More and more we're going to hybrid, remote, secure, standardized solutions where possible. This brings its own inherent challenges, etc. And then when I go to the what can be done, what can be shared, I think we've got a lot to learn from other industries around how they approach some of the people, process, and technology topics. And then also maybe us sharing with some of them, because we're a little bit of a secretive society. There's a reason why we don't often go into these things, and maybe we'll break that today. And are we winning? My opinion is yes, because people aren't hurt and we are protecting ourselves, but this is fragile.
Thank you very much indeed. Interesting point. Okay. Let's, without further ado, go to Christoph. And Christoph, you started off by saying to me, it's extremely demanding. Let's hear why. Your opening statement, please, Christoph.
I would say that my only concern, or one of my most important concern, is to meet the client expectations. And of course, the luxury industry is very demanding because the luxury industry deliver the excellence to its clients. So also this industry expects from the providers to get an excellent service. So it's extremely demanding. The risk is very high. We are not managing the risk. We are just a security provider. But I would say that having this concern, meeting the client expectation from a security service provider perspective, the challenge is to implement a security concept that never fails. So it's extremely ambitious, but I would say that today, to guarantee the clients that the day an attack occurs, whatever it is, a cyber attack, or it is a robbery or burglary, we need to ensure the client that the system will be functioning. It's quite cliche, I would say, but it's not that easy. So now we are moving more and more in connected solutions, because it doesn't make sense for me and for the group strategy to allocate tons of people on site to ensure the security. Now we need to be more proactive. We need to anticipate failures. We need to fix the failures. We need in a very short time frame. So we need to deliver some solutions that are completely connected and that are completely manageable from remote. This is what we do, for instance, for Richemont. This is how we perform and how we can also measure the performance of our deliveries, because we are more and more data driven. So thanks to the data, we can analyze our performance, our deliveries, and we can improve, or we can analyze why we are performing or why we are deviating from the client expectations. Then going back to what we can share with you and from other sectors, I'd say that this is this famous process of the appearance of damages. It's a triangle with 3 components. We have people exposed to a threat, we have criminals, and we have high value goods or cash in the banking industry, for instance. So of course, if we remove one of these components, we break this process. So there is no risk anymore, but it's not easy because it's not the responsibility of the luxury industry to fix the criminality. It's the responsibility of the authorities or the government. But what about challenging the management of the staff, or what about challenging also the presence of the values? So if we remove one of these components, I said that we can also maybe try or expect to vanish the risk. And if we vanish the risk, we vanish all the consequences of those risks, especially the robberies that where the luxury industry is extremely exposed. So I have experienced that type of exercise in the banking market 25 years ago in France, especially. When the banking market decided to remove the cash from the branches. So a lot of bankers were extremely resistant to that approach and that challenge. But two numbers, 1986, 2,600 armed robberies out of 50,000 breaches in 1 year. Today, we have barely 10 robberies, and all of them are unsuccessful because there is no cash to get. So I think that I'm not saying that it is easy to duplicate that approach, and I'm sure that you guys in the luxury industry, you have been thinking about that, of course. I'm not saying that it is possible, but it's like a recipe, you know. If you want to make some crepes, if you don't put eggs, you will never have crepes, or at least not eatable. So that's the principle of that experience and that exercise that I've been living in my background. So I would be happy to share that experience.
Thank you very much indeed, Christophe. Appreciate that. If you do have a question, don't forget, use the question and answer button at the bottom of your screen, and we'll endeavour to incorporate your questions, as some have already done so already. Let's hear then from our third panellist. And Richard, I'm interested in your insights on this, please. So your opening statement.
Absolutely. I mean, I think if we look at the situation, I don't want to make this a COVID discussion, but I think it's important to highlight that we went into COVID and the whole risk profile changed. The whole risk register completely turned on its head in some ways. So we went from no physical stores being open, very limited accessibility to product. And then, of course, now we've reopened and we're seeing the effects of that. What I would say is since COVID, since we've reopened post-COVID, we've seen a huge increase in criminality. Criminality has, gone from a place where people couldn't access the product. Now, of course, with it being as accessible as it is, people want it more. The desirability is there. As we alluded to earlier, you can steal one handbag and the return on that is worth 3 or 4 shoplifting trips to a chemist or a high street fashion store. So I think the criminality aspect is super important because we need to reflect on that and think about, well, how can we mitigate that risk as best as possible? How can we, without impacting the commerciality? So from our point of view, the more layers of security we put in, the impact it has on the commercialization and how commercial we can be as a brand. So the post-COVID world puts in some interesting challenges. And I think one of the other big things that's come from that is the supply chain. What we've seen a huge increase in is the omni-channel approach. So the blurring of the lines between the physical customer experience and the e-commerce. Before, you either bought on the website or you bought in the store. Now these two are sort of starting to merge a bit. And people are having virtual store experiences. People want that white glove approach, but they want it to their front door. So the last mile has been a big part of that, looking at last mile courier delivery. And I think now what we're seeing is an increase in fraud with that. So people are saying, oh, but the box is empty when it arrived, or the box, it was in the box when I sent it back to you. So returns fraud. So that's adding another security element where traditionally what you could do in your bricks and mortar, what you could do with your 4 walls and a ceiling, you could control everything that happened in that. But the minute you're handing that good to a courier, you lose control. It's with the courier, but ultimately you're still going to suffer if the customer says they never received it. So, and then you've got the reputational impact of that as well. People leaving negative reviews, people saying, oh, I had a bad experience, whatever it might be. So I think there's a huge issue there. And so there's been a lot of work we've had to do with supply chain and looking at how we manage that relationship, ensuring the customer gets the same experience, again, but whilst trying to make it as a secure a process as possible. That said, though, we can't lose sight of the fact that the traditional risks are still there. And Shaun and Christoph have both alluded to that. Armed robbery, ram raids, these things are still very much prevalent. They still happen. You know, we've got certain countries in Europe which see a higher prevalence of ram raids than others. But again, you know, even the high street is seeing that to an extent now. It's not just luxury. You know, there's been several ram raids in London this year alone. And it's a technique it's high risk, but it can be high reward if it's carried out with enough planning. So again, it's having the physical security measures in place to mitigate that. So I think all in all, yes, the dynamic has changed. I think we are winning, and there are some really intuitive technologies. There are some really intuitive risk management strategies which we are starting to deploy, working in partnership again with the likes of Christoph and others who can deliver a world-class service to support us in our endeavours. And I'm sure we'll allude to that in some of the questions. Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. My first question, actually, I got in advance. In fact, I got two closely related, and it comes down to this point. Shaun, I'm going to start with you, if I might. We've been hearing on these webinars over the last first 166 episodes about the changing dynamic of security professionals in terms of being a business brain as much as a security brain. Shaun, I want to ask you this. This is the question, really. In the luxury goods sector, is the fact that the client places a lot of interest on the value and therefore the importance of security make it easier to engage with the business? That's the first part of the question, Shaun. And the second part is, do you think, if that is the case, that security professionals in your sector have to be, generally speaking, more business astute than would be the case typically? And I'll come to each of the other two as straight after, Christoph and Richard straight after, if I might. I'm trying to get the role of the security chief within organisations and the business dynamic to that. Shaun, you first, please, if I might.
I think when you first join the industry, if you're not within there, you're sort of amazed by some of the pieces, the value, the prestige, the experience. After a year, 2 years, 5 years, it's just a piece of metal. It's just a stone, and people become complacent with it. So you speak to the staff and it's just another sale. It's just another transaction. Obviously that they're aware that they're delicate, so you have to be careful with them, but you change your approach to them over time. So I think people are aware that the attractiveness is not the same as somewhere else, without diminishing anyone else's goods and what they do, but it is different. And there is some recognition of that, but you have to remind people of this. You have to say, hey, look, that piece is not, it's not an entry-level watch. This is something that's hundreds of thousands or even millions. We have to have different controls. You have to think in a different way about how you're taking this somewhere, what you're doing with it, how you present it, all these different factors. And it's a real, going back to the cultural aspect and the people aspect, is keeping them aware, keeping them alert with the risks that there are. Don't become complacent like many other industries. And people are probably saying they understand that on the call. Second part of the question on there, if you could refresh me with the question, second part.
Yeah, I was just trying to get a sense of the extent to which the business dynamic, the need for security professionals to be business brains too.
Exactly that.
Carry on.
Yeah, exactly that. I think it definitely helps, but I think that's a wider point, is beyond my industry, beyond our industry, is security management in general, health and safety, risk management in general. You need a connection with the business. I was lucky enough to start off with a business qualification, then I've gone from there. But you need that connection. You need to talk their language. You need to make them understand what's the business case and why it's important to have security for them in place. And if you don't talk that language, if you don't make it a business case, you might not get the reception and the reaction that you want to get.
Christoph, do you agree with that? And if you do, it suggests to me you've got to be a different type of animal, a human, than would be the case in many other areas of security. Your thoughts, Christoph, please.
Well, first, I can't agree more with Shaun. Of course, I see how the different local security managers, especially within Richemont, not at global level, but also at local level in the countries and in the different brands, maison, how much the security managers are involved in the business. They are completely business centric, completely. And also it requests us as a security services provider to be also business centric for the clients, because we need to adapt to the business. You know, we can't, the less the boutique staff see a Securitas engineers in the boutique, the more they are happy. So that's why we also need to adapt our processes to satisfy Richemont, to deliver the security, but also to respect the business and to not disturb the business. That's extremely important. Every day in our operations and in our procedures, we talk about the potential consequences in the business. So they are extremely business centric and much more than, I would say, maybe 10 or 20, 25 years ago. So now we can't split the security and the business anymore. That's impossible.
Now that's interesting though. So that suggests to me then that to do the security role, you also have to be very au fait with business process, principles, philosophy, what have you.
Completely.
Well, what do you think your peer group is up to that challenge, generally speaking?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me come, Richard.
Yeah.
Let me come to you for this. So, first of all, do you agree? And secondly, you've got a sense of through your role in promoting young security professionals. It seems to me you better be careful about encouraging them to come into this world too soon. It's a bit too there are easier starts, aren't they, Richard?
Well, I suppose there probably are easier starts. I think I agree. Yeah, absolutely. You need to have. I think though, that's a common theme. I think any good security professional that's worth their salt will have an understanding of the business they're operating within. If you're a security manager in oil and gas and you don't know anything about oil and gas and the commercial pressures and how it operates, etc., you're probably not going to be a very good security manager in oil and gas. I think it's the same for luxury. The thing with luxury is obviously, as with any kind of retailing business, it's hugely driven by commercial success, revenue generation, and ultimately the bottom line. And it's all about client experience. You know, we need our clients to come, whether they're in our stores, whether they're at home, whether they're on the website, whatever they're doing, we need them to have the absolute best experience possible. And the security has to complement that. So I think for me, it's about working with all of the various teams within LV, LVMH, etc. And I'm sure it's the same for Shaun, etc. And working with our vendor partners, you know, our guarding providers or technical security providers, etc., to make sure that they aid that client experience and they have an understanding of what it is we're trying to deliver. We want our clients to enjoy the experience. And yes, as a client, there's always going to be an expectation that there's a degree of security measure in place. You know, if I'm a client and I'm walking into a very high-end luxury store and I don't see any security, I might find that a bit weird. But funnily enough, not every client would. And again, it's having the right balance where you have to make sure that the measures don't outweigh the threat. So you've always got that balance in mind. But an understanding, knowing what we're trying to achieve, knowing the client experience we're trying to deliver, and knowing and the different ways we're trying to deliver and what's important to our customers, absolutely, I think is critical in this role.
You see, it's an interesting one for me as an outsider. I mean, one of the things that Simon Cham asked, and one of the questions, and let me come to you, Christophe, first. A couple of the questions, and one I got in advance, was about partnerships. And I just wondered whether, Christophe, when you speak to partners, is there any sense in which, because you deal with luxury, that it's not really the sort of thing that we want to worry about as a priority because it's luxury? Appeals to an elite, only those who can really afford it. And great, the companies are protecting themselves, but if you want to get sort of police and other enforcements, this isn't going to be up about our priority list because we need to look after those who are a bit more disadvantaged. Is there any sense of that Christophe, in your world from other stakeholders?
Definitely.
Ah.
Yeah, I think that if I understand your question, I think that how can I say that? Once again, still in terms of security services provider, I don't want to rephrase what was already said, but I think that security is a priority, but for the business, it's not. It has to be completely transparent. So the less the more the boutique staff or the business is focused on the business, directly on the sales, and the more they are happy, of course, because they don't care about security. Okay, we care, of course. Shaun cares, Richard cares, I care for our clients. Okay, but I would say the people that are supposed to do business, we don't need to disturb them with the security. So it has to be, I would say, a painless process, completely transparent. And also, this is why the concept that we have within Securitas, I don't want to promote Securitas, but we have a business, a model which is called the full managed by Securitas. We are providing the security for the client, but we are also managing the security for them. So both the sales force can be completely focused on their task, and also the security stakeholders can be also focused on their strategy task, not managing the maintenance, not managing the different failures. That is extremely time consuming. So we do that, okay? And with that type of model, we can save up to 70% of the I would say time consuming tasks. So they are completely focused on the strategy, risk assessment, management, etc. So I think that once again, we need to understand our clients. That's extremely important.
Yeah, okay. I mean, Richard, let me come to you on this point. And it's this point about forging partnerships, which is often seen to be so crucial to being effective. Do you find it, Richard, a challenge because you're luxury, and why should we worry about you too much, even if it's not explicit like that?
I agree to an extent. I think, but I don't think criminality or issues are good for anybody. And I think so. From my point of view, I don't see that quite as much. I don't think that I wouldn't say I have huge problems forging partnerships or getting a response, or because I'm in luxury or because the industry is luxury over anything else. You know, luxury goods contribute, you know, billions to the economy. So I don't think that, yes, there's always going to be a little bit of, we're in an age of austerity, and absolutely. And, you know, when you've got people who are struggling to eat or choose between eating and paying the electric bill, and I appreciate that. But I think ultimately, you know, you could say that about so many different combinations of products and services. You know, what's one more important over the other? So I think that's a different conversation, probably for another day. From my point of view, you know, we've built long-standing partnerships with law enforcement, with our vendors, and internally as well. And to Christophe's point about the staff don't care, and should they have to care, you know, about security, or should our internal stakeholders, because you know, we're on it. From my perspective, actually, I need the staff to have an awareness, but I almost want them to do it subconsciously. And what I've always tried to train from an internal perspective is that security shouldn't be a secondary workload. It should be something that you do by default. You know, if you spot something that isn't right, you're automatically flagging it. You're not thinking, oh, that's a security thing, that's a separate thing I have to do. It's something that's in your day-to-day process flow. So you get people switched into a security mindset. That makes my job far easier, because my eyes and ears are our team. You know, I can have 1,000 security guards in every store, but one of them is still going to miss something. Ultimately, our team on the ground are going to be the ones that help spot, identify the flag, and are going to flag the issues in 99% of the time. And actually, by having an environment where they're empowered, not by increasing their workload, not by taking them away from the commercial endeavor, which is ultimately to give our clients a great experience and to sell products, but by just empowering them on what they need to, that situational awareness, that actually helps massively in terms of building partnerships internally. So yeah, I think to your point, yes, there's an element of that sometimes, but I think everyone with any kind of stakeholder management at the moment experiences pressures in terms of building relationships. So I don't think we're unnecessarily targeted because we're in luxury, no.
Okay, thank you. Shaun, I'm going to change tack if I can. And I've got a question here from Troy Hewitt, who runs a security supply manager. He's a head. Talks about the insider threat. Now, this is an interesting one. And the question is, I mean, his question is, what percentage of luxury theft do you think could be attributed to insider threat? And presumably, that and collusion with outsiders must be a major concern. Is it? And I'll come to Christoph afterwards. Shaun first.
Yeah, I know the stats for us, but I'm not going to share them. What I would say is that it is a risk. It is a principal risk for us, and it's something we're aware of, the insider threat, which goes beyond physical security. We're also talking cyber here, which can have physical applications of people who can access to data and to hardware, software. We take it very seriously. Client data, client credit card information, all these things, this is something that we treat equally as important to make sure that our clients are protected. And the pieces, we do have to recognize that people will try and take some of our products. If you can take one or two out every now and again, whether it's a warehouse, a boutique or whatever, it can add up. We also have raw material, which also is in small quantities, but it's the price of gold is going like this, and precious gems. And we have to be careful with these type of things. So yes, it's a factor we put in, but there's rarely a human element to it where humans aren't being hurt here. My key risk is burglary, armed robbery, anything where our staff can get hurt. That's going to be my focus, because bits of gold, jewels, watches, etc., we can replace.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate you don't want to give figures, and for obvious reasons. But do you feel as though you've got a good handle on the size of the internal threat problem? Because it's a difficult one to know about, isn't it? It always is in every industry. I mean, just very quickly, and I'll come to Christoph.
Yeah, loss prevention is something we talk a lot about. We're lucky to have a loss prevention expert within house, where we track together with finance, etc., where we try to identify what the real number is for loss, and that's not easy. Loss versus shrink, what's the difference? And I think we've got a fairly good handle on it. Could we do better? Definitely. Is there a bit of a dark number perhaps out there where we don't know and where we could do better? Definitely.
Yeah, Christoph, your thoughts on this sense in which the extent to which it's a problem and how we can get some measure of it. Christoph.
I agree, but we play a role in that. I think that, of course, when we talk about insider threats, we talk about, especially because we are more and more data driven. So, of course, we talk about cybersecurity, but confidentiality is key. The less we talk, the better it is. We have more and more employees within our group, once again, as a service provider, that are involved in the security of our clients. They have some knowledge, of course, a part of the knowledge, but they know a part of the process. They all know something about the security at our clients. And we are extremely attentive to the confidentiality of the information, not only inside our company, but the information relative to the clients. So that's extremely important. So we try to never talk about what we do. That's extremely important. And I also have in mind, and I'm sure that in the audience, a lot of people are informed about that, but in the banking industry in France, one of the most famous burglary came because two employees were talking in a bar about the fact that there was no security in the safe room. And some criminals dig a tunnel during days, and they access the safe room, and they emptied the same room during a weekend. So the information came from that. So the confidentiality is extremely critical for us.
Yeah, okay. Richard, I will just ask you for a very quick comment, because then I want to change tack again, if I might. But Richard, this issue of really to what extent you feel the sector's got a handle on the scale of the insider threat. Richard.
Yeah, I mean, the insider threat is probably bigger than we all like to pretend it is. I think the reality is, and again, you add that in with the cost of living and the pressures and everything else, and the insider threat's only going to extrapolate to an extent. So I think, I mean, I'm certainly not naive to it, and I don't think Christoph or Shaun are either. I think the insider threat is something which has always existed. but I think it's now finding new ways to replicate and to potentially cause disruption to the business. Shaun's alluded to the cyber threat. I think one of the biggest risks, if you look at the insider threat and cyber, there's huge, especially with the working from home. I think that's added huge implications in terms of even just the security of working out and about and not being, again, in a traditional office or boutique office, whatever it may be. So I think the scale of the threat is evident. I think how do we counter that threat? I think it's a number of measures which all businesses have, but I think, again, it's by building an empowered workforce that can also help you identify internal threat measures. And again, a lot of the time, the insider threat, things come about, it's identified, and hopefully you can nip it in the bud before anything happens, or in the early stages of something developing.
Richard, very specifically and very quickly, if you wouldn't mind, because I want to change, I want to do a different question to move on. The question I was going to ask you was about the extent to which you mentioned in your opening statement COVID had changed it, and then you've just mentioned working from home. Is there any evidence that working from home has actually increased the threat to your business? Not the it might have done, but evidence that it has. Very quickly, if you wouldn't mind, Richard.
I would say on the face of it, for me personally, no. I don't think there's any direct evidence that working from home has dramatically increased the threat. The only thing I would add to that is that obviously when you're in lockdown, there's a general perception that the buildings, or sort of from a very traditional physical security standpoint, buildings could be seen as more vulnerable. I think that's a very broad question, Martin, that could be looked at a few different ways.
But here's the point. I appreciate it, and all I want to know is, are you at this point aware that working from home has increased the threat? And I think your answer is not yet. And
not yet.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. I'm going to move on because I want to get some more questions. We're running out of time. Shaun, I want to come to you because Jack Colvin's got a question, which I think is an interesting one, because you sort of touched on this in your opening statement, actually, and it's about emerging technologies and what's on the horizon. There was almost the thought in my mind before the webinar started that this area must be at the forefront of this. They must be thinking about where this is all going and coming up with new threats. And yet, when you and Christoph were speaking, it was very much, I didn't get that impression quite so much. So I'll ask both of you. Jack Colvin's question is, are there some sort of emerging technologies that you believe are going to make a big difference to this sector? Shaun first, please.
With security of our sites, more and more we're having remote connectivity of our systems, and then using AI and adaptive technology so that we can identify intrusion, identify trends that are relevant to us and what we do. Detection of precious materials, things like that. We're always on the look. The caveat to this, it mustn't just sound nice, it must work as well. If it doesn't work, it's useless. And it's worse than useless. You're given the false hope that you're going to attract something. What's the emerging things that's going on with traceability of our products? Blockchain. Blockchain is the new future. This is how we are going to have identification and traceability of our products, so that it's going to be increasingly difficult to sell onwards, because our products are a form of currency and can be used in people trafficking, drug trafficking, and everything else. So it is a big topic. And we can help the police and society in general by having traceability of this form of currency.
Yeah. Okay. And is that area going well? I mean, are we seeing real progression? Because on a previous webinar, we've had someone, the argument was this is AI in particular is overstated. I just wonder where you are with
AI is overstated, I think, in technology, because it's got to work, whether it's a bot or whatever the case it is, it's got to work. And that's what's really difficult. The idea of it is great, but reality, it's difficult to do something. Blockchain, very real. It's been around for more than 10 years. And this is something that everyone is moving towards.
Interesting. Christoph, let me ask you the same question that Jack Colvin posed. I mean, whether there are emerging technologies, and specifically perhaps your thoughts on blockchain.
Yeah, I have the same findings than Shaun. I think that we see an evolution and some innovation in the technology, but in the different major segments like video surveillance, access control, intrusion alarm system, they are not evolving with the same I would say, in the same way or with the same frequency of upgrades, evolutions, innovation, etc. Now we see an evolution, an exponential evolution with the video surveillance. We can provide some video analytics, make some, I would say, try to go toward the crime prediction or to analyze some suspicious behavior, etc. But it's still immature. We have been testing some solutions, and sometimes we need to step back a bit and to make it simple. So we need to work in parallel with what is working, and now we know that we will reach the SLA, the KPIs that are requested by our client. And in parallel, we also need to test some new things, but it's evolving quite slowly. Especially for me, the intrusion alert system, we have barely. I'm not a technician, but it's very far from being a full IT solutions, completely connected, where the video surveillance and even the access control is now completely connected and manageable from remote. So yeah, we need to work on different channels, but we need to be focused on the deliveries and the performance, and sometimes we need to keep that simple.
Yeah, interesting point. I'm going to give you a final comment from you, Richard. On this bit, I mean, you can extend it if you want to emerging practices, emerging technologies. And this point, you see, this sense of in the luxury goods sector, is it the case that you are different, you are thinking differently, or are you facing the same challenge everyone else is? Richard, a final sort of set of comments from you on that, please.
Yeah, I think the only thing I would add to Shaun and Christoph's point on the emerging technologies front is, for me, I think historically retailers spent hundreds of thousands of pounds on fantastic CCTV systems, but they used to tell you that after the event that a belt had been stolen. What I want the system to do is tell me about before the belt's about to be stolen, so I'm actually getting some added value from that. So I think the emerging technology that I'm most interested in is mostly analytics. Which again does boil into the AI piece. And again, I've yet to see a fantastic singular example of that, of a system that delivers exactly what I want, which is that can tell me that products are on the move inside our stores. Yes, I think we are a little bit different. I think there's absolutely, if we look at the threat we face, I think we're seeing, as I said, with the increase in criminality, which has been a general theme throughout this discussion, we're seeing that this phenomenon of grab and run now more and more, which was normally a US phenomenon, which was, people come in, pick it off the shelf and run out the door. Now that was something that you didn't see a lot of in the UK historically, whereas now it's becoming more and more. So are you going to do a grab and run in some high street retailers? Less so. So you'd have to grab and run with a lot for the high risk, high reward to be worth it. So I think you can grab one or two items in one of our stores and run out with them. And again, the reward's going to be far greater. So I think from an emerging point of view, yes, we are different. Yes, we need technologies and policies and procedures that can back up these kind of new and emerging threats. And I think our teams, our external vendors and our technologies need to be adaptable to reflect these new challenges and take us forward as we enter this now very real post-COVID reality. Very interesting. Panel, we've run out of time. Thank you very, very much indeed. And thank you very much indeed also for your questions. I'm sorry we didn't get to all of them, but there were just too many. Always a good sign in its own right. A few final comments from me, if I might. Just to say that OSPA entries are open but they're closing in next month in US, in the Benelux and Canada. So look out for those. They're closing in August in the Tackling Economic Crime Awards, the Cyber OSPAs, South Africa OSPAs and German OSPAs. And Christophe, look for an announcement about the French OSPAs next week coming up. And finally to say, don't forget, good luck to Romania. The OSPA award ceremony is going on right now. So we'll be announcing the winners a bit later. Just to say 15% of the proceeds from the Romanian show are going to Ukraine. And next week, the webinar is on the implications of the Russia-Ukraine war on the private security sector. That's the implications outside Russia and Ukraine on the private security sector. So hope to join me next week, please, if you will, this time, next Thursday,
for that webinar. Meanwhile, thank you once again to my panel. Thank you very much indeed to the audience. Thank you to Hannah in the background, who's been doing the technology. Until we meet again, wherever you are in the world, stay safe.